Welcome, students and friends. Thank you for turning on to our station again, Prep Station Tutorial. And in this edition, we'll be looking at momentum. What is momentum? Momentum is the product of mass and its velocity. So when you have mass multiplied by velocity, you can say that is momentum. What is the SI unit for momentum? The SI unit for momentum is kilogram meters per second, or Newton per second. So that is momentum. Momentum is basically the product of mass and velocity that gives you momentum. Now, let's look at what Newton's law of motion says. The first law says everybody continues to be in a state of rest or uniform motion in a straight line unless acted upon by external force. So that's Newton's first law. The second law says the rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to the applied force. And it takes place in the direction of the force. While the third law says action and reaction are equal. So these are the three laws. These are the three Newton's law of motion. Now, another component of momentum is impulse. What is impulse? Impulse is the change of momentum produced by a force. So the change of momentum that is produced by a force is known as impulse. And that is mass multiplied by the change in velocity. So if we have the equation for force, which is equals to change in velocity multiplied by time. So impulse is the product of force and time. Product of force and time is referred to as the impulse of force on an object. And then the SI unit is still Newton per second. Now, let's look at conservation of the law of momentum. Now, the conservation of the law of linear momentum states that momentum before impact is equals to momentum after impact. So if two bodies are in motion and they happen to collide, it says that the momentum before the impact is equals to the momentum after the impact. And we can represent it to the simple formula by m1 v1 plus m2 v2. It's equals to bracket open m1 plus m2 v. So that is momentum. m1 v1 plus m2 v2 is momentum before impact, while m1 plus m2 multiplied by v is momentum after impact. Let's take a few questions on this topic. A body of mass 2 kg moving vertically upwards has its velocity increased uniformly from 10 meters per second to 40 meters per second in 4 seconds. Neglecting air resistance, calculate the upward vertical force acting on the body. So let's look at the question and pick out the most important parameters that are required for the solution of this question. So here we notice that our mass is what? 2 kilograms. And then we have our velocity, final velocity of 40 meters per second. The initial one was 30 meters per second. So if we bring our formula, F is equals to the product of V2 minus V1 divided by time, we are going to have it as 2 multiplied by the product of the difference between the velocities, which is the initial and the final velocity as the case may be. That will be V2 minus V1, which will give you 40 minus 10, all divided by 4. Now, if you do the right substitution, you are going to come out with an answer 15. And so let's go back to the options that we have there. So the first option there, A, is 15. The second one is 20 newtons. Third one, 35 newtons. D, 45 newtons. So we can see from this that the right option here is what? 15 newtons. Now, let's take another question. It says a force of 100 newtons is required to kick a football of mass 0.8 kilograms. Find the velocity with which the ball moves if it takes 0.8 seconds to be kicked. So the options are 35 meters per second, 50 meters per second, 64 meters per second, 100 meters per second. So now let's still come back to our formula. We know that force is equal to change in momentum with time. So since here our force is 100 newtons, now we are required to find the velocity. So with the right substitution, we can know that velocity is equals to impulse divided by the mass, which is Ft divided by m. So if you substitute there, you're going to have 100, which represents the force, multiplied by the time taken, 0.8 seconds, divided by 0.8 seconds. You are going to have your answer as what? 100 meters per second. That gives the right solution to that question as 100 meters per second, which is option D. Now, we still take another question. So when taking a penalty kick, a footballer applies a force of 300 newtons for a period of 0.05 seconds. If the mass of the ball is 0.075, calculate the speed which the ball moves off. So you have a few options here also. A, 4.5 meters per second. B, 11.25 meters per second. C, 20 meters per second. D, 45 meters per second. So let's look at the solution. The force applied on the ball is 300 newton. The time taken was 0.05 seconds, while the mass of the ball is 0.075 kilograms. Now, our formula is F is equals to M multiplied by V divided by T. So if we now make V subject of the formula, is going to be F multiplied by T divided by M. And so that will give you 300 multiplied by the time taken, 0.05 seconds, divided by the mass, which is 0.75. Now, if you input that properly into your calculator, you will come out with an answer 20 meters per second. So if you look at the options there, C is the correct option there. Thank you.